All right, so we got some more quarantine content coming. Yeah. So, anyway, so spend some time. I wanted to do this. I think this would be fun, man. Hopefully everybody joins in. But we are going to do the Sweet 16 March Madness style bracket of black TV shows. Yeah, so I'm gonna pull it up. And I'm gonna work through. I might work through the whole thing. At first, I was thinking about just working through the first round, but we'll see how I feel. But this is what I got, and look, it's a lot of good shows that probably didn't make it. As far as how the bracket's set up, it's just kind of as much random as I could get. So don't try to at me. I mean, you can at me. I'll probably reply. But anyway, so if you don't know how it goes, there's 1 seeds, which is the top dogs, 2 seeds, 3 seeds, 4. There could be upsets though, but hopefully you could read a bracket. And so if they win, they go on to the next round till we got the championship. And so, yeah, whatever. It's probably a lot of different things people would have put different places, but this is what we got. So, let's go ahead with it though. We're going to start in the first region with Fresh Prince, who is the number 1 seed versus the Jamie Foxx show. Now, look, Jamie Foxx show is hilarious. Let's be honest. That's a very underrated show in my opinion. The whole thing with Braxton, which actually kind of is a little derivative of Carlton, where you kind of got the Oreo, dude, and the cool, person, which would be Fresh Prince or Jamie Foxx. So it's a little bit of that, but man, like, I think with Jamie Foxx, you had the aunt and uncle, they were hilarious. Jamie was hilarious. Yeah, and it definitely had memorable moments. That's a show that I could think that I really haven't watched in a while, but I could think about Jamie Foxx show and be like, yeah, I remember like certain episodes, with the West Side Connection with Ice Cube. Now I remember that one. Just different goofy stuff, and Jamie Foxx would write jingles, like, so I remember some stuff from that. But Fresh Prince, number 1 seed for a reason. Honestly, I don't know pound for pound that it's funnier than the Jamie Foxx show, but what I will say that I know for sure is that it had a better full round, offering, because you had the comedy, but you also had a lot of the heart. I mean, when we talking about memorable moments, we can't, forget about, how come he don't want me and all that. And so, it's a lot of stuff. And then, the whole Bel Air clothing line coming out now is kind of bringing back that nostalgia. And, the opening song is iconic. So, this probably, I wouldn't say easy. This is not easy to me, but I would say Fresh Prince wins in that part, and then they got to go on to the next round. So then, staying in that bracket, we got Living Single versus Steve Harvey show. Now, for me, this is easy. I'm going with the Steve Harvey show for the upset. But listen, I gave Living Single a 2 seed because I recognize how pivotal it is in our history, and I know how much people really like it. Living Single, I didn't even know this because I never watched Friends, but Friends is one of the biggest shows ever, and apparently they ripped it off from Living Single. So, and they just made it a white version. So a lot of people are now trying to come around and giving it props and all that. So definitely that. And it definitely had a good run. Like, I watched it and I remember, Overton and, that now it sounds bad. Oh, Khadijah. I was like, what is Queen Latifah's name in there? But, I remember all of them and all the friends and all that good stuff. So I definitely recognize this spot, and it had good laughs and it was a good time. But probably for the same reason I look at Friends and I'm like, I'm not really sure I want to watch a show about that. I feel the same way with Living Single. Not that I don't want to watch it, but it's just like, okay, it's a big group of random people, and it's like, okay, I don't know. I feel like more like the solo shows or the family shows is what really makes a good sitcom for me. But yeah, I liked it. But Steve Harvey show, bro, is hilarious. It was hard to put it as a 3 seed because not only you had Steve, but you had Cedric the Entertainer. Of course, they both went on to be kings of comedy, and it was live, and so I die. I mean, even the surrounding characters, Levita and her being ghetto, and because she was in Friday. I forgot her name. Like, it's Terry something. Maybe not. I don't remember. But she was in Friday, and her character reminded me of Craig's girlfriend. Like, I love your mama said. Like, that's how she felt. It was hilarious. And Levita is just funny. And then you had Romeo and Bullethead and like all of them. So it really was a point where if it wasn't Steve Harvey on screen, you still could get really good laughs because the surrounding characters were really funny as well. And it definitely lasted for a while. You had a lot of good cameos, a lot of memorable moments. I mean, I still kind of sing some of the songs. What was it? The High Top. He was Steve Hightower in the High Tops. When the funk hits the fan, all the people want to jam. That's my stuff. So definitely, yeah, for me, top tier type show. So I gotta edge out Living Single. Not really edge out. I think it was pretty easy for me, but I know Living Single is big for a lot of people. So the matchup will be Fresh Prince and Steve Harvey. So moving to our second bracket, we'll go down. We got Martin at number 1 seed versus Girlfriends. Easy, Martin. Girlfriends, another show that I saw it on like on the outside, on the outskirts. My mom watched it a lot. I know a lot of people like Girlfriends, but I never sat down and was like, oh, I love Girlfriends. This wasn't my type of show. But I recognize again, this was one, all the 4 seeds, the number 4 seeds were tough calls, but this was like, okay, I'm going to throw this in here because I know what it means to a lot of people. But yeah, for me personally, just not one of my top shows. And Martin, I'm going to wait because I could go on forever about that. All right. So now this is a hard matchup. You got A Different World versus Atlanta. Now, I had to put Atlanta in there because it's Donald Glover's historic in black culture right now, just off the jump. Like he's so young, but he's in there. In Atlanta, if you watched, I don't know anybody that watched Atlanta and doesn't think it is a top tier show in black history. So for those that aren't like big Atlanta fans, I feel like they didn't watch it. And trust me, I was the same way because I want to say 2 years or two years ago is when I first watched it. So I didn't get it at first either. And then when you watch it, it is mind blowing. It's so good. But A Different World. See, a lot of factors come into this because I think about historic moment or like memorable moments. I think about overall quality of what the show was supposed to be and what it did. And I think about historical impact. So when you talk about historical impact, A Different World is just, it's huge. It is huge. Especially for my demographic and definitely not demographic, but my age group and the group before me, because A Different World, like when it hit its peak in the 90s, I wasn't, I was super young, but when it was time for me to go to college, that was one of the only references I had. And so it was like, that's what you thought about when you thought about college. And at the time, it didn't mean much, but now, like going through, 2 degrees and everything and having these discussions about education, where else have you seen HBCUs on the big screen? And so for them to put it out there like that and really show like what it could be and inspire many generations, because you had the people before me that was a little older, and then you had people before them that were like going to college or in college when it came out. And it really just what Bill Cosby was trying to do was spark, this college going culture for a certain demographic. And so, but on top of that, it's got memorable moments. You talking about the whole N-word episode when Dwayne them got arrested. Like, come on, man. The Heavy D one, the Tupac one. But even on top of that, Dwayne Wayne, that name, that character is iconic. And so I feel like most of us know who Dwayne Wayne is. The flip glasses, like the whole swag of the show is big time. Is absolutely big time. Yeah, there's a lot. And on top of that, as far as being well-rounded, it definitely went into social issues and went into some drama. It wasn't just comedy. It was pretty well balanced, and it survived a lot. It shifted. I mean, you had Marissa Tomei, who unfortunately she didn't stay on the show, but she went on to do great things. You had her go, and then eventually Sinbad go, and like the show shifted, and it survived through those phases. So like it had a longevity. And that's one thing that's really fighting against Atlanta right now, because Atlanta, I believe, is 2 seasons. I believe it's 2 seasons. So it doesn't have a huge body of work. But when you're talking, and this might be because it's recent, but when you're talking about memorable, if you watched Atlanta, you know the Teddy Perkins episode. That's off the rip. Teddy Perkins by itself. But then you talking about the band episode with all the commercials, the price on the candle. When you talk about just any of the drama factors, because it's a comedy that at no point is like yuck comedy. It's just funny because it's written well, but it's like they living their life and it's a struggle. And I don't know, it's real deep. It's a deep show. It's very much like a Get Out. It's very much like a lot of these more thought-provoking shows. So, this is tough. This is tough. This is so hard for me, but I probably have to go a different world. Slightly, I gotta go a different world. And if Atlanta called a different matchup, it might have won. But you talking about one really longevity type shows versus something that's shorter, so it's a little tougher. So the next matchup for that would be Martin versus Different World. So we're gonna go to the top bracket on the right. This is going kind of long, so we'll just do one round. But Cosby Show versus Everybody Hates Chris. Now, look, Cosby, we know about Bill Cosby. I'm not here for the council, comments. Like, two things could be true at one. A person can do bad things and good things. We all do. Just because Cosby did things in his personal life does not mean the Cosby Show is not one of the most influential shows out there. Influential. There we go. But for me, Cosby Show, that's the biggest thing it has. Like, yes, it has that history. And yes, there's great episodes. There's the Monopoly episode. That's one that sticks with me the most, and it definitely had longevity. You saw these kids really grow up throughout all these times. And so it has all these great lessons, all this great heart. But I have to be honest, even as a kid, and I've watched it as I grew up and, watching it as an adult, the humor was never my humor. This was never my type of funny. And so while you could watch a lot of the Cosby Show and be like, wow, yeah, I can't tell you this show didn't excite me like other shows did. And so that is a fact for me. Everybody Hates Chris. I think Mike should be a number 1 seed. Maybe not number 1 seed, but it's up there. Everybody Hates Chris is hilarious. I can't say that there was ever, like, there's lessons, but it was never deep. It was a never deep show. It didn't take the time to be deep. There was definitely lessons in the satirical form, like Chris Rock likes to do. But, man, I don't know. It's just so funny. Malvo, Terry Crews as the dad, Tisha Arnold as the mom, like, all the jokes. It's just hilarious. And like, one thing I will say, as much as you like the person playing Chris Rock, the show was never really centered on him. Like, the good stuff about the show wasn't centered on him. The good stuff about the show is kind of in the characters around him. And so in the, you know, funny situations. So I feel like that hurts it a little bit. But it is hilarious, and I don't know that you necessarily have to follow it in order. Like, I feel like I could just always pop on an episode of Everybody Hates Chris, and, you know, you be good. And the Cosby Show, which is one of the drawbacks of being super long, I think it has some of that. But, you know, if you watch one episode from season 3 and then you jump ahead to season 9, like, it's going to be, you know, a lot happens. And so that's one thing with the longevity. I don't know, man. This is definitely tough because it's kind of influence versus execution. And these are two opposite ones for me. I'm going to go with the Cosby Show. I'm going to go with the Cosby. I'm a sucker for the influence. And I gave it a number 1 seed. I don't know if it'd be a number 1 seed for me, but it's definitely a number 1 seed in history. I'm going to go with the Cosby Show on the slight edge. All right, the second matchup is Family Matters versus the Wayans brothers. Tough. Tough. Very different. Both kind of family shows, definitely, but two different styles. Family Matters, legendary. Absolutely legendary. There's a case that it could be a number 1 seed. Steve Urkel, all that, you know, all the good stuff. Plus the family part of it is big. Outside of Steve Urkel, is there a big draw? Like, I like Carl and the family and all that, but really, like, if you weren't in a, like, Steve Urkel centered story, did you ever really like it? And I liked it early on, where it was more about the family, but it wouldn't have lasted. Like, the comedy of Steve Urkel carries the show. And there's a lot of heartfelt moments. Definitely a lot to talk about family, a lot to talk about society. But I don't know that anybody else stood out besides Steve Urkel, played by Jaleel White. And I love Family Matters. I grew up watching that. Can't say I ever went back after I got to a certain age. Wayans Brothers, I grew up on that. As they say, you grew up on it. Everybody knows about the Wayans family and how dynamic they are. Hilarious show. I don't know, man. Like, I mean, I do know. I don't know about everybody else, but for me, I do know. Like, you think about any Sean and Marlon type movie or whatever, you put them together and you gotta watch it. Like, even if it's not the best, like, not all of their movies were the best that they made together, but when they get together, something about Sean and Marlon, you gotta watch those two. Their energy is crazy. And then, of course, you have John Witherspoon, rest in peace, Pops, all that stuff. That's legendary stuff, man. So I gotta go with Wayans Brothers on the upset. So it's gonna be Cosby Show versus Wayans Brothers in the next round. All right, so last bracket, and we got some interesting ones. So I put the Boondocks in here as a number 1 seed. I think you got to, like, me personally, but also if we're talking about number 1 seasons really being cultural impacts, the Boondocks has given us so much. I mean, from the talent they put together, from like the cultural things they put out through the show, from the commentary they had, it is top tier to me. And so it'll be no shocked that I picked them over the Parkers. Now, the Parkers was hard. It was one of the last editions. I'll be honest with you. I was between Parkers and Moesha. I think Parkers hit harder. Like, the people that watched Moesha, I think, liked it, but I don't think a lot of people watched Moesha. But I think a lot of people watched the Parkers, especially because it, made it to that BET spot. And, Monique is hilarious. Monique is hilarious. Hey, Professor Ogilvy, that's iconic. So I had to put them in there, show some respect. And it was a funny show. The problem is nobody else was supporting Monique. So like I was saying with Steve Harvey's show, if Steve Harvey went there, it still could be funny with Said or other stuff. I forgot the woman that plays the daughter, but I'm not, she's cool, but she's not Monique. And so I just feel like a lot of that show really depended on Monique being on screen. But either way, I don't think it touches the Boondocks. So Boondocks gets that. Now we got one that I hate myself that I even put these against each other, but Bernie Mac show gets a lot of credit. My Wife and Kids with Damian Wayans is probably the most underrated show on this list. It is hilarious. It is stupid funny. You have is it Tisha Campbell? I feel like I called Tisha Arnold. I don't know how to pronounce their names, but Tisha Campbell? I don't know. But anyway, you got her from Martin. Hilarious as the wife, and it was so good to see like Gina, but like grown up, like I don't know, you always saw Gina one way and then she was bigger, but she was a mom this time, but you still appreciate it, and it's not like eye candy. Like, she really was just funny and she was holding her own. Damian Wayans, hilarious. The kids they got together eventually, they were funny. I know they switched the girl out at first, the daughter, the older daughter, but the one they brought in, she was funny. His son Junior, hilarious. Him just being dumb and like Damian Wayans making fun of him. It's good stuff. It is absolutely hilarious. But Bernie Mac show ain't no punk either. I mean, they got a good set of kids as well with good chemistry. I never liked Vanessa? I never liked the older one, but it's different because Bernie Mac, is from Chicago and he lived in the South Burbs around us. And I think they filmed somewhere near there, or I'm not sure where they filmed, but some of the kids were from there. And so it was kind of more like we support Bernie. Not to say that it wasn't funny, but we watched it religiously. And it was hilarious. There's definitely funny stuff. And Bernie Mac carries it, but you got that same issue where if it's not Bernie Mac, if it's not focused on Bernie Mac, and Jordan has some steam too, but if it wasn't Bernie Mac, I just don't know that it was as good, and the wife wasn't always there a lot. My Wife and Kids, it didn't matter which storyline they was doing, whether it was the youngest and Damian, whether it was Damian and his wife, whether it was Damian and Junior, whether it was just Junior, and they talked about some real stuff. Like, I think most of these shows all talked about some real stuff, but maybe it just hit me at a time when I was at that age, but like, they talked about some real stuff, and then Junior ended up having a kid too. That was crazy. So like, it was a really good show. I think it was really well rounded. It talked a lot about parenting. Bernie Mac show talked more about the black family dynamic, having to take his sister's kids, her being on drugs and all that. Big influential shows, but I'm gonna go with the upset again. I like upset on all these 3 C's, but I gotta go with the upset. And so I'm gonna take My Wife and Kids slightly, and that puts Boondocks versus My Wife and Kids. So that's the first round. Definitely go through the first round in the comment section, or if you want to write through the whole thing. But yeah, hopefully share this around. I think it's a good topic. Share it around, get the conversation started. Thumbs up, subscribe, and thank you for listening.